Hey, this is Scott of Photography Banzai. Today I'm going to go over the Nikon NIKKOR AF-210 f4 zoom lens. It was made in the 1980s. Of course, you can't buy it anymore new, but you can find them used quite a bit for a reasonable price. It's still a little bit more than some lenses of that range, but this is a constant f4 aperture throughout the zoom range, which is a big plus. Also has 7 aperture blades and a 62mm filter size, so you can easily find those. The reproduction on this is 1:4, so it's helpful in some situations to get a little closer to your subject, but it's not a true macro lens. The lens features a true aperture ring with an auto-aperture lock on it. You just set it to the smallest aperture and then it locks in, so it won't change on you when you're using the camera itself to adjust the aperture. It is an internal zoom type lens. When you focus, the front barrel will extend and it will also rotate. This lens is a little unusual. It has slightly more range on the long end. So let's go over the positives that I found about this lens. It has autofocus. This is one of the big reasons I bought it. I needed some type of autofocus, so that's a good thing for me. It seems to be precise enough. Actually might be a little more precise at times than the motor-driven lenses. Somewhat compact zoom lens for this type. You've got the constant aperture, so those lenses generally are larger than, your super cheap basic lens, but it's not too bad in size. That slight macro capability, the 1:4 reproduction has been pretty helpful to me at times when I do want to get in a close shot of someone's face or any type of object that I want to get a nice close either shot or video of. I've taken a lot of my favorite photos of people with this lens, even though it's not perfect, which I'll get to. I've taken some really nice photos that I truly like that came from this. For the negatives, it's an old 1980s design, has optical quirks that I've hit head on at times. It's screw-driven autofocus with the barrel in the front that extends and it rotates, which is a pretty big negative. And the screw-driven autofocus means you won't get autofocus on the cheaper Nikon cameras. So you'll have to use one of the more advanced ones to get that autofocus in there. And it's definitely a lot louder than all of the lenses that have motors inside. Not to mention it's also slower because it has that 1:4 magnification. It's going to go up throughout the range when it's trying to focus at times. My biggest issue with this lens is I have trouble with flare, or definitely at sunset, sunrise. You've got strong light coming from the front or the sides. It'll really affect the saturation, the contrast of this lens. It's a front-heavy design that makes it a bit harder to balance on the camera. Although it is pretty small, it's still a little issue at times when I'm fully extended to 210 and then I get a little extra shake because it's that front-heavy. It doesn't have a tripod mount, which I feel this lens is right at the range where it would be nice if it did have one. That way, if I'm using it on a tripod, I won't have the extra unbalanced issues that even with a lens this small, sometimes you do have. Overall, I like this lens for the amount of value I've gotten out of it, especially for the price. It's not perfect optically, but I've taken some really amazing photos with this lens that I haven't got with other ones. Maybe some of the quirks and the flaws actually help to produce a unique image at times. The value of picking it up would really depend on how much you can get it for. I'm not really going to talk about prices because they fluctuate so much, especially on eBay and places like that. But if you can get a nice value, you feel like you got a good value on it, definitely a decent lens. So I'm Scott from Photography Banzai. Thanks.